Okay, hey everybody, it's Vince with Green Joe Coffee Truck. Welcome to podcast episode number 2 of Joe on the Go podcast. I'm here with Sid Gauby of Slow River Coffee out of Boise, Idaho. And Sid's got some pretty interesting story. We're going to dig into his journey in coffee trucking, how he got started in coffee trucking, and also take a look at his electric coffee truck, a coffee truck that does not run off of generators. So we'll first start off with Sid. Sid, please, by all means, introduce yourself.
Hey, thanks, Vince. Sid Gauby, and I've been doing coffee full time for the past 10 years, running a coffee truck, a little over 7 now, and it's an interesting life in right now. So yeah, so we'd love to help out folks along the way, and get some lessons learned, and look forward to learning some new lessons as well.
So Sid, how did you get started in coffee?
Well, in my previous life, I was a pastor,
Okay.
and did that for almost 30 years, and so got into coffee before I left the pastorate, and started up a coffee house shortly after that. Had a brick and mortar for a couple of years, learned a whole lot of lessons the hard way that way. And while I was doing that, got to know some of the early food truck folks. This was in Indiana at the time, and got to know them. And we were looking at lease coming up and what we're going to do, and decided that we would a food truck would be a great addition to the storefront. And so we started that process, and as we were doing that, trying to negotiate a new lease, and the property owners thought more highly of the space than it was worth.
Sure.
And finally, we had the truck coming online, and we just decided, enough of this. We stopped the lease process and said we're just going to go mobile, and we did that, and really wouldn't look back. A lot of reasons why a brick and mortar are good. Your volume, possibilities, all those kind of things are great. But for me personally, and where I was in my life, not having to have employees, to be able to shut down, take off for a couple of weeks at a time, it was exactly what I was looking for. So that's been a good move.
So you started in Indiana first.
Yeah.
And you're originally a coffee truck, or excuse me, a coffee shop, a brick and mortar. But
Yeah.
then you had mentioned that you opened up a food truck. Was it, did you have a diverse menu? Or?
Well, it was primarily coffee. I did muffins and waffles and other things like that. But then when we moved, I grew up in Boise, Idaho, and my family was here and had some family health issues and things. And we were at a point where we could move. By that time, we were mobile. We said, yeah, we need to move back there. And when we got here, we dropped the food options and really just focused on the coffee.
Okay. So you took the truck that you had in Indiana and moved it to Boise, Idaho.
Yeah.
Did you have to go through a permitting process again?
Oh, yeah. Yes, definitely. So some states are easier than others. Like in Indiana, you had to have a commissary. In Idaho, you can be self-contained. You can act as your commissary. So some of those things the good part of it is when we built the truck out of a company in the Chicago area, we said, hey, build it for the toughest health regulations that we're going to see, because we didn't know what it was going to be.
Sure,
and
sure.
retrofitting something is always harder than it is to not need it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
so
absolutely. Yeah.
we build it out, and so we got the full 3-bay sink, and everything that goes with it, that would make it legal pretty much anywhere in the country for what we were doing.
Okay, gotcha. Now this is in Chicago. I recently had a client that had a coffee truck she was building in Chicago, and they required inline generators. Did your first truck have an inline generator?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay. So one that was just plugged to the gas tank. You didn't pull it off. There's no portability to it. It's just you start it. Yep. Okay. Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So the way it was built out initially, we have a Sprinter van.
Okay.
And so it's the extra tall, extra long.
Okay.
Really, it's got as much space in the truck as as the brick and mortar had behind the bar.
Okay.
In the area.
Sure. Sure.
So that was we were running a 12K PowerTech generator.
12K. Okay. Wow. Okay. Yeah.
Everything running a 2-group espresso machine, 2-head brewer, refrigerator, everything except for air conditioning. So didn't bother with air conditioning.
Okay. Okay.
But, yeah.
And so they built it out in Indiana. And did you have it when you first got a permit there? Was there complications that you ran into with that permitting process?
Not really. I mean, I think I'd done my homework.
Okay.
And something I tell everybody, that I talk to, whether it's coffee truck or food truck, or if it once, as soon as they start talking about wanting to do this, the first thing I tell them is you need to know the regulations better than the people who are inspecting you do.
Yeah.
You need to memorize it. You need to know, how much water you can carry, where you can dump it, because the inspectors have a huge list of everything that they have to do, and you're just a little part of it. And they're going to make assumptions about what you do as a mobile unit that have nothing to do with regulations. And so you need to be able to say, hey, when they say, well, you can't do this, your response needs to be, well, according to the regulations, this is how I understand it. Help me understand where you're coming from. And what I found is that when you know the rules better than they do, you get your way.
Sure,
as long
absolutely.
As you're not too much math. But yeah, they know you've done your homework.
Sure. Yeah. Research.
Yep.
So by the time you permitted in Indiana, you're already up to speed on the code and the regulation involved with that. The food truck manufacturer that built your truck out had built it to such a high regulation that you felt comfortable you would be able to go anywhere in the country.
Yeah. And I've done, we operated in Indiana for almost a year before we needed to move to Idaho. I've done things in Idaho. I've done things in Oregon, and have never had any issues with health permits. So
sure. Was there a county or a municipality that they had used as a guideline as the toughest to build out to?
That's a good question. I never quite asked that question to builders as we had those conversations.
Sure, like a kind of highest common denominator type scenario.
Yeah, they were building for a lot of trucks in the Chicago area. So, my assumption was that that's probably what they were using as a as the guidelines.
Chicago has a tough code. Chicago
Yeah.
has a, yeah. I mean, I've read LA and Austin, and both of those have Dade County as well. They all have some pretty thick codes, but I think of all the codes, it was Chicago that I felt was the toughest. But to give them credit, they did allow for coffee carts. So
Yeah.
so I
Yeah.
have to, so I tip my hat to them on that one. Is, you know,
Yeah.
although LA County can be tough, I don't see many coffee carts out there, and with Chicago they did allow for coffee carts. So hats off to them.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're done with Indiana. We had some things that come up in our life, and we said, okay, we got to go. We're going to go to Idaho, and so you get to Idaho and you visit state, county. What was the permitting process like that?
Well, it was a matter of setting up an appointment with the health department,
Yeah,
getting it inspected because it was an existing unit. You know, they didn't have to sign off on plans as you would if you were building it out.
sure.
So that was the easy part. The hard part was actually getting all of the permits to sell in the different localities. In Indiana, you get a statewide business permit. You get permitted by a county health department. You're good to go. You got your tax numbers, et cetera. In Idaho, and I understand probably as in some other states as well, every municipality has their own vendor's permit.
Oh,
So, you know, I'm coming out and I've read the rules, but I didn't, you know, I'm not looking for vendor's permits. Didn't know anything about that.
okay.
So, you know, I get all my my paperwork and I go into to the city and say, okay, you know, I need my food and drink permit.
Yes.
Okay, well, okay, you got this and that, insurance, et cetera, health, et cetera. Well, okay, now you need your vendor's permit. Oh, really? So, well, you know, that means you have to go through a background permit, fingerprinting. That's going to take 30 days, maybe less
Wow.
to do that.
Wow.
And so have to do that in every location in Idaho. So
Wow.
had to decide, well, okay, where am I going to do the most business?
Sure.
The first
Sure.
year, I had a number of permits that I have not renewed
Yeah.
because, you know, it just wasn't worth doing, you know, something in, you know, in a little town 60 miles away that I was at one time.
Sure. Sure.
And then found out, well, okay, you can't get a 1-day permit.
A temporary.
Yeah.
A temporary.
So,
Okay.
right. So it was a matter of, okay, learning the jargon, what hoops in where, and how to do it. Just, you know, kind of an interesting story and along the lines of knowing what the rules are. One of the cities that I was wanting to do business in the first time, went through all the process, turned in all the paperwork, and nothing, wasn't getting anything. And finally, a month after I turned everything in, I went back to the city clerk and said, you know, where is this? And they said, well, you know, it's in process. And so I said, well, according to code, you have to provide this and the permit within 30 days. It's 30 days. Where's my permit?
Yeah.
Oh, well, it's not, you know, it's in process. I said, well, okay. If I don't hear from you by 5 o'clock tonight, you'll hear from a lawyer tomorrow.
Yeah. Yeah. Good for you.
At 4:30, I got a call saying the permit was ready. So, and you know, and they said, well, we'll give you a temporary permit. Well, no, there's no temporary permits. That's not allowed under their code. So, you know, it really is. It's a matter of, do you know the code better than the people you're talking to?
Good for you.
And so, you know, I hate to play the bad guy or you know, potentially burn bridges. Try to do it in a nice way, but still you got to know the rules.
Sure.
And when you know the rules, they will play by the rules that are on the page. And if you do too, everything will work.
It reminds me, I have a rule in business that you don't screw someone else over to get yourself ahead. It's one of my primary principles in business. But that also means the reciprocal of it, that I'm not going to screw myself over as well. And so I think what you're doing there is just being assertive and standing up for your own rights to do business. And hats off to you for that, sir. That's absolutely.
And you don't have to do it. I think we all have a tendency to take things personally. And when we do that, then we come across as making it personal for the other person. And it's not, you try to just dial it back and say, hey, I know you're not the one that is keeping this from happening. So, I'm not upset with you.
Yes.
I'm upset with the process.
Yes. Yeah. I understand you're just trying to do your job. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. However, I need to move forward with this process.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good for you. So did you drive?
Oh, go ahead.
So sorry.
Now, I'm going to say there are some people who you need to get them to take it personally, but those are the rarities.
Well, that's interesting. So what do you mean by that?
Well, I think when if you've got somebody who's holding things up that really has the power to make the decision, and you need to call them on it, and you say this isn't acceptable, and you need to communicate to them that they are the ones that are the issue at this point.
Sure.
It's not the clerk at the desk that is just doing what they're told. It's the boss that is undermining the things that you're trying to do. And at times you just need to call them on it and say, look, this is the way it is, and I know you're the one that's holding it up, and I'm not going to put up with it. Who do I need to go over your head because you put your foot down and it's not right?
Yeah, absolutely. That reminds me of a time when I was in the military. I had an issue with someone that was over my rank, and it was kind of the same thing. They were holding up a set of paperwork based upon a personal agenda. Exactly. And I wasn't able to get them to move that paperwork. And actually what ended up happening is I had to get a congressional investigation to move it forward. I had to have my congresswoman step in on that one. And sure enough, the next day I got a phone call from that guy, and he said,
yeah, and you have to be careful, especially when you're working with government, people. Those are the last bridges you want to burn.
Yeah.
But sometimes you have to.
Yeah. Yes. When I first started Green Joe Coffee Truck, I had burned one of those bridges pretty significantly, just out of just pure business ignorance. I didn't know what I was getting myself into. And the gentleman was a manager of the convention center in town that holds the majority of the convention center, conventions. And well, anyhow, he had set me up to set my coffee truck up at the end of a race at the finish line. And I said, well, nobody wants to drink coffee at the end of a race. I need to be in the front. And he didn't want to hear it at all. What I ended up doing was going to the event manager. So I jumped over his head. And that burned his bridge so bad. I was not invited for years. It took us years to rebuild that relationship. We did. We eventually rebuilt the relationship slowly out of necessity. He would need a coffee truck, and I would let bygones be bygones. And we slowly rebuilt the relationship back again. But some bridges are, unfortunately, I burned that one a little bit too early. So you had this Sprinter van, and did you drive this from Indiana to Idaho?
Yeah.
Okay. What kind of Sprinter van is it?
It's a Mercedes.
Okay.
So it's a 2013 Sprinter diesel.
Okay. The diesel one?
Yep. Got no
How,
power, but it'll go forever.
how do you like the diesel Mercedes?
It's been a great truck.
Okay.
And it really any issues with it. I know talking to some folks that do heavy deliveries with them, they have issues with the transmission, but
Okay.
I'm putting less than 10,000 miles a year on it. I'm never going to get to the 30 or 40,000 miles a year that those guys are doing when they're
Sure.
delivering. So
Now, is this the 4x4 or is this just a two-wheel?
yeah, this is just two-wheel
Two-wheel.
or two-wheel drive, and it doesn't have the dualies in the back. It's not heavy duty. It could probably use a little extra springs in the back just because of the extra weight from the water and stuff. But
Okay. Okay. Now, do you have to be do you have to be more cognitive on where you're putting the water in these vehicles?
Well, just like in a trailer, I mean, you just kind of have to think about spreading the load.
Yeah. Okay.
How are you moving things out? You don't want one side so heavy that the other side is, putting too much pressure on the springs, that kind of stuff. It's
Sure.
the basic things you'd worry about if you were doing a trailer.
So you just kind of distribute the weight equally as much as you can within your workflow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Fair enough. Sure. How do you remember how many miles you bought the Mercedes with? Did you buy it new?
We bought it new.
You bought it new. Okay.
Yeah. In part, people always say, well, how can you, how do you afford, to start? Well, we had, money that we could put into it, equipment we could put into it, but also at the time, Mercedes was running a special where you could roll over some of the build out costs into the loan.
Oh,
And
really?
so,
Okay.
yeah. And so, we did that, then, then just paid it off early.
Gotcha. Did you find that out through your research, or how did you hear about that?
Actually, in just talking to the Mercedes dealers, they said, "Hey, well, yeah, this is what we said. This is what we want to do." And they said, "Well, because we were looking at both used and new at the time, and they said, well, hey, you might as well go new, get all the warranty and everything,
Yeah.
the 0 miles, and here's the deal. So
Sure.
we'll roll that into it. You got your down payment, and that way, we could extend what we needed and what we had a little bit further."
Why Mercedes over say Transit, the Ford, or a Dodge? What led you to that decision?
Well, the Mercedes, the Ford they weren't making the Transit yet at that time. So you had either the Mercedes or the Dodge Sprinter. It was really the only options for that size. And Mercedes was running the financing deal. So it's like that. It was a no-brainer.
Yeah, sure. Okay, fair enough. Yeah, so it was between two of them, and you had a deal on one of them. And
Yeah.
and the Mercedes diesel engines, second to none, right? These things are
Yeah.
million-mile engines. Yeah, they're wonderful.
And at the time, the Dodge was basically the Mercedes with the Dodge logo on it.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
So Dodge was just kind of white labeling the Mercedes.
Yeah.
Interesting. I didn't know that. Okay.
Understand at the time, at least. So I could be wrong. That's the way I remember.
Sure. Yeah. So based upon the truck that you had in Indiana and then the truck in Idaho, which is the same truck, did you have to replace any equipment during that transition?
No, we were able to run the same things, same setup.
Okay. So now you have an electric powered coffee truck, and that's really unique. What led you to decide to go electric?
Well, we looked at it when we initially started, when we were building out, and just the technology at the time was just wasn't there. And so I been checking it out or keeping my eyes out for things along the way. Yeah, and gotten some quotes over the years. And, one quote was, I think probably 3 or 4 years ago. Somebody said, "Oh yeah, we can do that. The batteries and solar to charge it, that kind of thing." And I think at that point the quote was for like $45,000. And I thought that, well, okay, that's not going to pay. No matter how much you want to cut things down or to do that, that's not worth it. So about 2 years ago, I guess it was, now 2 years ago, I was on the street selling, and a couple guys stopped. They were on their way to a music festival, carrying stuff back and forth. And they stopped for some coffee. So I said, well, what you're doing, that kind of stuff. And they were providing power banks for the music festival for their cash machines.
Oh, interesting.
And,
okay.
So, okay, well, cool. And so I said, well, I've been wanting to go battery and solar for some time. And they said, we think we can help you out. And so it's kind of how things started. And so we started working with their company is called Joule Case, Joule.
J-O. Okay. Oh, okay. That's a good play on word.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so they're a local company here in the Boise area, and they were working on battery technology, and stackable batteries is basically what they do. So their power bank will go, if you need, X number of power, and then you find out later you need 2X. Well, all you have to do is you add another layer of battery.
Okay.
So they were working really at the whole process of cutting out the small generator issues.
Okay.
And those places where you needed sound, you didn't need the generator running, or it was inside kind of thing. And so they've developed the technology and the resources. And over about a year and a half, we worked out what it was going to take to power everything I needed. We ran tests. How much were we pulling at max? How long were we going to need it? And so then, last August, I guess it was, we finally pulled the generator out and put the batteries in, the converter. Then after that, we added the solar to it. So, it's been a process, but it's been worth it. The battery bank is will provide 23 kilowatt hours. That's from fully charged to it coming down to not powering things. The solar power that I've got 7 solar panels on top of the truck. That will give me several more hours of work. And we really, I designed it and said, here's what I want. I want to be able to go to a lacrosse tournament and start serving at 8 o'clock in the morning. And I want power that's going to get me until 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
Okay.
And say, hey, we're going to be pulling, we're going to be pulling shots. We're going to be running blenders. We got to run the refrigerator. And so we did the math. Well, they did the math. They understand all that a lot better than I did. I know just enough now to kind of know what works or what should work, but not necessarily how.
Okay.
So we pulled that, and right now I plug in first thing in the morning when I'm heating things up, because that's the big draw for your power.
Yeah.
Plug into the house power, the shoreline.
Okay.
And power it up for 20 minutes to heat everything up, and then I'm good to go. For the month of February, I've only I started out full, and a week and a half ago, I plugged in again to top things off. Other than that, I'm going to pull probably 10 hours of electric time. Well, shouldn't say that. 20 hours of electric time over the course of February, just to keep the batteries charged outside of the solar.
Gotcha. So when you plug in, are you plugging in to a 220 outlet that you have wired in your home?
Yes. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. And so that goes into your panel. I assume you have an electric panel
Right. Yeah.
that has some type of transfer switch, and then powers all the, and then do you have to manually go in and hit a switch to pull from the battery, or when you unplug, does it automatically transfer over?
Yeah, you flip. There's a switch on the converter that you switch off over from powering the charging to full battery.
Okay.
Yeah. And we got a remote switch in the truck, so that's an easy one. You just unplug it, and you flip it over.
Sure. So is it running at 24 volts? The battery bank, did they set it up?
It's running at 48 volts.
Wow.
So yeah, I mean it's running everything full power.
Yeah.
Haven't had issues. I've done, been kind of an interesting year. We haven't really put the test yet.
Sure. Okay.
But, I've done several hundred drinks, probably 250 to 300 drinks on one day without any sunshine. And it's gone down. The battery levels probably gone down half to 3/4 at the very most.
Okay. So is this something that you can plug in on the fly?
What do you mean there?
Like, say for example, it's a cloudy day, it's a busy cloudy day. Are you able to charge it off of a 110 household electric?
Oh, yeah. Okay, good. Yeah, good question. No, it because of the inverter size, it has to be a 220.
It does. Okay.
So, but I could, if I've got let's say I'm going to be let's say I'm doing a music festival, a 3-day music festival someplace.
Sure.
If I rent or borrow a Honda generator,
yeah,
I can turn that on, run it, on the off hours. It's going to recharge things, turn it off, ready to go again.
Sure. Wow, what a wonderful investment.
Yeah, and it's not cheap, but I've been doing I had the PowerTech generator for 7 years. We were in the, I think, 12,000 hour range. It might have been a little bit more than that. We're really looking at having to replace that.
Yeah, sure.
It's either a major rebuild or replace at some point. So those are going to run $12,000 to $15,000.
Wow.
By the time you pull it out, by the time you put a new one in, shipping, all those kind of things. If you can do it under 10,000, you've got connections that that you should be grateful for. So that was in the back of our heads. This is a finite piece of equipment that's going to have to be replaced. Because we're doing the solar and battery technology, we'll have tax implications. So we get money back or money off of our taxes because it's a solar credit.
Oh wow. Okay.
So it really the out-of-pocket cost is expensive. The total cost, when you really look at all of the prices, the things that go into it, you're talking about maybe a third more than what it would be to get a new generator.
Sure, sure.
And that's going to, the time you save in changing the oil every month or more, the fuel you're paying to run the generator and all, it's not that that big of a return before you're saying, hey, I've broken even.
Sure.
And you're starting out right now, and you're not thinking about battery power. You know, I get the fact that you want to keep things cheap.
Yeah.
But I'm doing things already that I never would have done with the generator. Because, you know, I can pull into I can pull into the Ford dealer, into their shop, and do coffee all morning, because I'm not running generator. There's no fumes that that are keeping me from doing business.
Sure.
Sound for places that I'm doing business, people are having me come out to do things, and and they're doing a presentation, an outdoor presentation because of COVID, and they don't want the generator running to interrupt things.
So you're seeing dividends coming off of that already.
Oh yeah. And people love the idea. They're saying, oh, you're a as green as you can go, and they're giving us twice looks rather than just a once over. It sets you from the competition in a way that is that makes you unique.
Good for you. Absolutely. So when you started with the electric, what did you pay out of pocket, or were you able to finance the electric installation and equipment?
We paid out of pocket. We knew it was coming, and because it took longer than what we'd initially thought, we did, we set the money aside, and we're able to do that out of pocket.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah. Did they have financing options?
I don't know. I never asked that question.
Sure.
So,
okay. Yeah. I mean, that's a big chunk from just kind of what I gathered between the lines. If you have a 12 to 15K generator and the solar is a third more than that, it's going to be sitting, somewhere around 18 to 20K, which for a lot of entrepreneurs just starting off is what they'll spend on their trailer total. So, but I can see, after being in business for a few years, the incentive on switching over, or maybe if the person was just getting started and they can get that added into their funding, I can see how that would be a benefit as well. Yeah, absolutely.
And that's, kind of one of the things that I believe, and I try to encourage other people who I talk to about is, think about when you're building, think about what your market is. And one of the reasons why we went with Mercedes Sprinter was because I knew my market was going to be receptive to a Mercedes-Benz pulling up. They were going to look twice at that and say, oh, this is a class quality outfit. Whether you like it or not, that's the image. And so, I really had to look at what was the image I wanted to present. What was the market I was looking for? How was I going to build out the truck in a way that was going to meet the needs that I thought were out there for coffee? And so, we did some things that were more expensive, just like adding the battery and solar now, that other people might not do. I mean, if you're building out a horse trailer and your goal is to do weddings, hey, that's going to be a different market than it is to pull up at a corporate event that is expecting 30 gallons of coffee in 2 hours. So
Sure.
completely different build out, completely different setup, and one is not going to do the other.
Sure. So that being said, if someone's looking on transitioning from kind of like, if they want to move out of their full-time job into a full-time coffee truck business, would you then set the highest common denominator as your market?
No, I wouldn't. The first thing that I tell anybody who wants to start a food truck is how much money, how long can you afford not to get a paycheck?
That's a good way to praise that. Yeah, sure.
Because there's just so many variables that you can start out small, and people do that, and pay cash for everything over 3 or 4 years, and feel good about it. Get into it for a couple of years and then quit their day job and say, I'm going full time with this. Other people, like me, say, hey, we're gonna pull out all the stops that we can. Risk not making some money for a while for the long run, and go all in. It's just different levels of acceptance for risk.
Sure. When you first got started, did you have a supplemental source of income coming in?
Yeah, my wife works full time, so she has income as well as insurance.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
that's always been helpful along the way.
So it was one of those, okay, we're going to eat rice and beans for the next 6 months and try to get this thing started.
Yeah, thankfully we didn't quite go back to our 20s, but yeah, there were days. Definitely days where the credit card bill was going up in the wrong direction instead of coming down.
Yeah, I can see that. I did the opposite. I started off, I had a day job still, and I was moonlighting it. I was coming in at 6
Yeah.
and doing
Yeah.
a 6 to 10 shift, 5 days a week. And then eventually that 6 to 10 shift just took over. I was closing my door to a line. And after, doing that for a few weeks, I said, okay, I think I'm going to make the jump. Yeah. So,
Yeah. And it's I love to see people who are able to make that transition, and and do it well. The thing that always scares me is that I've seen too many people who have jumped in before they're ready. I've been doing this long enough. About every year, there's a new coffee truck, cart, trailer that comes out, and right now, out of the 7 years that I've been doing that, there's nobody that's doing it full time.
okay. Yeah.
Started, they've jumped in, they tried to make a go of it, and I bought a lot of equipment and supplies from people who are selling out,
Sure.
because they just didn't do their homework. They weren't ready to financially to do it, and I'm sad when that happens, because those dreams get crushed pretty hard.
Yeah.
And I hate to see that.
Yeah. I mean, I think what you bring up is a really important, we're on the same page with that one. It's like step number one is research. Know your cost of goods, know your build out costs, know what know how much you need to make a living. I think that's huge. Like how much money do you need to make before you can eat?
Yeah.
I think that's key. And it's often my advice to folks that are looking for coffee trucking as a side hustle. I say, well, do you know what you currently cost? Because if you have a, if you're looking on filling up the bucket and you got a hole in the bucket, adding more water ain't going to fix that hole.
Yeah.
So the first step is always making sure that folks have that their budgets are tight. You know, take a month, make sure you track everything for a month, just see what you cost. And that way, you know, okay, this is how much I need to make in order to eat. Yeah, I think that's key. I think that's really key. So
And
yeah,
yeah, for those who are just starting out or just thinking about it, you know, numbers are all over the place. I mean, you can think pretty much your cost of goods are going to be 20 to 30%, depending upon what you're making, what your costs are in your area.
yeah,
Your ancillary costs are going to be on top of that. I pretty much tell people it's going to cost you $100 a day to be out. That's going to include your insurance, your advertising, your cost of goods, everything else. You have to make $100 a day just to break even. And so, you know, you got to think about that number when you're starting. And if that's not, you know, $100 a day doesn't seem like much, well, that's, you know, 20 mochas.
yeah,
Well, oh, that's doable. Well,
yeah.
depends upon the day, depends
Yeah,
upon the weather,
yeah,
depends upon where you can park,
yeah,
depends upon a lot of variables before you can say, oh, yeah, I can do that. I can not just 20 mochas, I can do 50 mochas.
yeah,
Well, how much time do you have to serve? You know, what's the coffee market? Are you at a place where, you know, you're near a college campus and they're going to drink coffee all day long? Or are you in a, you know, in a business park where your coffee hours are basically, you know, 7 to 8 and 9 to 10? You know, then you got so many hours. How many people can you serve? You know, you're going to use a one group coffee espresso machine. How many can you do in an hour? Do you have to have other staff? That's going to raise your prices. So all those kind of things you got to think about when you're building out, when you're getting started, because it's not a one size fits all. It's not a show up, open the doors, and they're going to line up and say, "Oh, give me coffee," and I'm going to give you.
Sure. Yeah, yeah, that's right. So speaking of which, so what does a typical day for Slow River Coffee look like?
Um, well, a typical day is starts out around 6 o'clock, warming things up. I'm on the road usually by 6:30, set up to serve 7:15. And if it's not a catering day, I have a location that I'm usually set up here in Boise, down by the Capitol. So I've been to the same corner for 6 years.
Okay.
And so, you know, we show up, we're there from about 7 o'clock until about 10:30.
Okay.
And, you know, so over that course of time, we've seen a lot of people come and go.
5 days a week?
5 days a week.
5 days a week. Okay. Did you find that location originally? Was that your first location?
Yeah, it was.
Okay.
In part because of the rules and regulations for vending in our area.
Okay.
You can't in the downtown area. Kind of there's areas, etc. You know, I've done other stops at other places, you know, later in the morning, but I've just kind of used that as a home base. And you know, some days maybe it's raining. Well, some days mid-COVID, we've got maybe a 20% of the office staff that are still there. But so, you know, the numbers aren't there, but I get, it's on a busy street. People are going both ways past me. And I get a lot of calls because, oh yeah, you know, I know you're down there, you're there. And people say, oh, hey, we want you to do this catering. Do you still do that?
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. So that's fed into other opportunities as well.
Exactly. Yeah. My primary income really comes from catering.
Catering. Yeah.
Yeah. And so like this past month, I think it's 7 or 8 different schools that have also done, I show up there 7:15, serve 30 to 50 teachers and staff till 9 o'clock, and then head back downtown and serve for another hour or so. 10:30, I'm usually cleaning up, home by around 11 o'clock. And, then it's the business that the other business that needs to happen. And it's not a 40-hour or 80-hour job right now, most
Yeah.
weeks, which is exactly what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
I've done that 60-hour work for other people job, and thankfully I've done that, so I'm not overly worried about retirement savings and those kind of things. That's already there.
Sure.
So it's what is best for my life, and what works with the other things I want to do.
Yeah. Sounds like you get a big piece of your time back.
Yes. Yeah.
That
And
was, yeah.
there are definitely weeks I do a couple things where I'm working 14-hour days, 16-hour days, and one event I do for a full week. So I'm working 14 to 16 hours for 7 days, and the paycheck comes with that. But I'm pretty much done after that. I don't want to work that hard.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So when you first started off at this location, and kind of, it sounds similar to your downtown district, maybe on the outside of your downtown district, did you see business right away?
Oh no, no. Oh, it was slow going. I
Okay.
mean, part of the reality in at that time, we're talking 6.5, 7 years ago. Just the idea of food trucks was still pretty foreign.
Okay.
And no matter what the truck looked like, how clean and professional it looked, just getting people past the idea of you can get a quality cup of coffee out of a truck.
Yeah.
It's like, what are you talking about?
Yeah. The roach coach syndrome, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Thankfully, I've been around long enough in town. People know me now. I'm kind of a fixture. People, even people who don't stop on a regular basis, notice if I'm gone on vacation or something, and they say, "Well, I haven't seen the truck out for a while."
Yeah. Okay.
So they know that the quality comes with it now, and so, but yeah, there were a couple months there starting out where it's like, boy, did we make the wrong choice?
What led you to stay in that location as opposed to moving to a different location?
Um, Primarily because of the contacts I was beginning to build.
Okay. Okay.
I knew enough about the area and what was possible, that it had the highest population of office workers that was on a public street.
Okay.
That wasn't in an office park. And I looked at some of those and talked to a couple different people about, could we set up in your location and this and that, and there were headaches and other things that we just ran into, and it's like, no, we'll show up, we'll put in the time, we've got a good product. I'm personable enough most days where get to know people, call them by name, remember their drinks, that I knew it was something we could build, and so we stuck it out. And
so you had researched this area already. You saw that there was a population density of kind of morning workers type of thing.
Yeah, it's right it's just out across from the state capitol. There's the state workers are in office buildings all around it.
Sure.
It's not necessarily the highest income, because they're public employees, but they're also very faithful. They know when you're showing up that they're gonna come see you over and over again, and that's what I found.
Wonderful.
Is you show up at a particular location, you build a clientele, and they'll bring others.
Yeah, just good business practices.
That's really what it is. I mean, whether you're selling coffee or burgers or insurance, I mean, it's about, do you know your customers? Are you there to meet their needs? And when you screw up, will you fix it?
Yeah.
And and if you do those things, the bar is pretty low, actually. People will put up a lot if you do those things.
That's so true. All right, so I had a couple more questions for you.
Sure.
So do you have any influential business books, podcasts, resources that you would recommend?
Um, I used to read a lot of business books, leadership books. In fact, I have a doctorate in leadership development in a different life. So there's not a lot that I've read recently that I'm not current on some of the latest trends. So don't do that. I do listen to if people are familiar with Donald Miller. He's got a business podcast, Business Made Simple, that I really recommend. It's mostly probably for folks that are running higher numbers than what most of us are doing, but it's some really just good basic business principles.
Okay.
Things like, how do you deal with you bring in your own issues? How do you do marketing? How do you deal with staff? How many pockets do you have for your money? Where do you put that? So he's somebody that's fun to listen to, and I usually make sure I listen to his podcast when I'm walking the dog. So that's one I really recommend. I think the best thing that I would say for folks that are starting out is to find a mentor. Find somebody who's been there before, maybe not even in your area. Helpful if they have some idea, but if they got some good business sense, listen to them. The best business advice I got starting out was from an insurance agent who said, as you're getting started, know two things and write down two numbers. He said, write down how much you would sell your business for, and the other, write down how much money you can lose. He said, write them down, write those numbers down, and keep them. Put them someplace where you're going to look at them. And he says, whenever you hit either one of those numbers, your business is done. Well, yeah, we were pretty close to that. How much money can you lose number for a couple different times. But having those numbers there, he said, if you don't do that, you've got a hobby. And
Okay.
that really, I've remembered that, and I think it's good advice. Is if you don't know how much money you will sell your business for, it's not a business. And if you don't know how much money you can afford to lose, it's not a business. They're just hobbies. They're things to keep you entertained, and so you need to act like a business.
Sure. That's a really interesting way to put it. Like, there's almost kind of extreme parameters almost that, okay, if you reach this point, then to call it a day. If you reach this point, then to call it a day.
Yeah.
Yeah. What a wonderful piece of advice.
Yeah, and it's not something you want to hear, especially when you already have spent more money and you lost more money than what you ever wanted to. But at some point, you got to know when to pull the plug.
Sure.
And because if you don't know, somebody else is going to know for you.
Yeah.
And that is always more painful.
Yeah. Yeah. No, you're right. You're absolutely right. Okay. That is good. I wrote down the Donald Miller. I'll make sure to put that inside the notes of the podcast as well as on the YouTube page. We'll get that squared away. Now, you offered to do a tour of the truck.
Yeah, if you would like to, we can see if we can't take the technology we have here outside and show folks around. You want to do that now?
Yeah, I think that would be wonderful.
All right. Well, let's. Okay. Can you see things there? Is it too bright there?
No, I can see things. I see the transit there. It's beautiful.
Yep. So so this is the Slow River Coffee van, and open things up, and so we'll turn the lights on here too so that we can see inside. Here we are with just inside the door of the truck. We've got a refrigerator here on the one side of the espresso machine. I've got your syrups, cups, lids on top of the refrigerator. Then next to that, we've got our Wega concept. There again, this is not a cheap espresso machine, but it was also what we were looking for as far as the look and the power that we needed to do the business.
It's beautiful.
And then we've just added Malconic double grinder. That was an upgrade this year, just because we needed something a little more powerful and something that we could really do the job, both regular and decaf.
Is that the one just to the left there?
Yes.
Ah, I see. And so, okay, it's a dual grinder.
Dual grinder. So space-wise, works great.
Yeah.
And really does a super job with the grind. I mean, we'd use the other ones, your basic grinder, but having an on-demand fast grind works super with that. So that's been a good upgrade. Then we're using a Blendtec rapid rinser, which if you don't have one on your coffee trailer, would highly recommend something like that. It's a lifesaver as far as speed and use wise to make it work between doing your pitchers, both hot and cold. Really works well. So then, your 3-bay sink. Back here in the back, we've got a 40-gallon freshwater tank and a bun, double brewer, and grinder. So that's kind of the work of the insides of the machine or of the van. Sure. And have everything we need, kind of some storage here and there. Have used the stainless steel shelves as storage, as you kind of see.
What do you think about those, Sid? Do you like them?
Yeah, they've been great. Just turn them upside down. You got a lip on them. Things stay in place, and you clean them out the way they're supposed to be, and they work well.
That's great. What a great idea.
So then that's kind of the inside of things. Now we'll take you back out in the sunshine and show you what the setup is for the batteries. All right. So I don't know, Vince, you tell me whether or not you can see things there.
I can, yeah. It looks like you have a battery bank of maybe 6 running in series.
Yep. We got 6 running in series. This is then the solar transformer. So it takes the solar here from up on the roof and into there, and then into the batteries. And then we're using an Ames inverter charger. So a 48 volt inverter charger, and that's doing the work to get things powered from the battery to the equipment.
Yeah, that's a wonderful setup. So you just have the solar panel, which comes down to looks like that trickle charger, and that feeds the batteries, that then feeds the inverter, that then feeds the panel.
Correct. Yes.
And
Yep.
what are the 2 gray boxes there?
Those are actually the losing the word now. The fuses. Basically, from there to the batteries to the inverter, they go through the fuse, so that if you're needing to work on one or the other, you can break the power chain, and it can kind of controls things back and forth, so that you don't electrocute yourself, or do any other damage that you don't want to pay for later on.
Sure. No, that's super smart. That makes sense. So it's a disconnect.
Yeah.
So with the batteries there, are those gel batteries or hydrogen? Are they the wet cell?
They're well, I don't know enough of the jargon, but they are they're the NiCad batteries. So you can drain them all the way down.
Oh, yes.
Recharge.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you don't have to fill them with distilled water?
No.
No. Okay. Wow, what a wonderful setup.
Yeah.
And so this all feeds your electric panel?
Yep.
Okay. Do you just do like a 50 amp electric panel?
Yeah. So I don't know if you can see back here. Then there's the panel.
Yes.
So it's a 50 amp panel, and then on the side of the truck we've got your shore power hookup.
Yeah.
That will charge or override the batteries if you're wanting to do that.
What a beautiful setup. What a beautiful setup.
So, I know it's not something that everybody can or wants to do, but I think part of the reality is that if we got to think about the future and what we're going to do, how we're setting ourselves up for it. And I think the more people figure out that you don't have to have a generator to do things, you're going to get calls that others aren't. So
yeah,
that's just been my experience. So
sure.
If you can set yourself apart in some way or another, it's a good thing.
Sure, absolutely. And that definitely sets you apart. So any words of advice to someone just coming in that they want to get started, they're not quite sure what to get started with or how to get going in this industry?
Well, I think the thing I learned the lesson I learned the hardest way is that the biggest thing you're going to have to overcome are the mistakes you make first. the bad drinks you put out because you don't quite know what you're doing, the bridge you burn because you're not aware of how you're coming across to a potential client or a public official. Those are the hurdles that can make or break you. It just people will give you a lot of grace if you work at it and you try your best, but bad product and bad personal skills are really hard to overcome. And so if you don't at least have an awareness of what those are going to be, or how you come across, it's going to be a tough road. And that's the hard lesson along the way, and not everybody's cut out for it.
Sure. Yeah, a little bit of humility goes a long way, doesn't it?
Yeah. And then that's really where it helps to have some other people that you can talk to. One of the reasons why I love to work with other food trucks is because you can get that feedback. Get a barbecue truck that will tell you, hey, somebody came and we were at the same place. Somebody came by, got a drink from you, and I saw them throw out the whole thing. You don't want to hear that, but you need to hear it. Yeah. Because you're probably not going to see it for yourself.
Sure.
And you need to be able to say, oh, what am I doing wrong? Did I give out a product that I should have pulled back and said, hey, you got another 3 minutes. This didn't come out right. Let me make it for you again.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, man, I mean, that's so key. I think just that spreads so far beyond even business. Just having humility to admit the mistakes that we make and try to improve ourselves on a daily basis. It's there's a part of my morning meditation routine is to just remind myself that I'm here to learn.
And that's the thing we all need to. I mean, I've been doing this for a lot of years. A lot of it comes rote. But I'm always learning something. I'm reading things, I'm listening to podcasts, or I'm checking out other people, what they're doing. There's always something more. And it's not just about new equipment. It's about how are you doing it right. I'm still not satisfied with the way we're making our blended drinks. And I've been doing it for a lot of years, and a lot of people like them. They come back for them. But to tell the truth, I'm not real excited about them. I haven't tasted anything else that I like better, but I know it can be better. And so I'm still working at that. What am I getting the percentages right? Am I, is the ice the right hardness, or does it need to be softer? All those kind of things. You got to continue to think about them and work at them and say, okay, yeah, I can learn from this. I can do more.
What a great way to what a great mentality to have. I really admire that. I think that's a really good way to look at things in general. That's great.
Yeah, that's maybe 3 out of 5 days out of the week. The other 2 days, I'm pretty hard-headed and oh, if you can have more days like that than not.
Come Friday. That's
right. Try to hit on the right days at least.
So, Mr. Sid, you mentioned that you do some consulting as well.
Yeah, I do some consulting with people who are starting food trucks, any kind of food truck, but also with coffee shops and that kind of thing. So I've helped a couple different coffee shops just sit down and talk about, well, what are you doing? How do you what could you do? Or what's your menu look like? What are your processes? Kind of help people walk through that. I've also helped different people set up coffee stations, done that in a couple different churches, saying, hey, what kind of equipment do you need? What kind of equipment can I get for you? Where do we look for that kind of stuff? How do we train people to do coffee? So yeah, I've done a little bit of that here and there. And so if people want to give me a call or an email, I'd be glad to talk to them. I give an hour at a time for free, just to hear, what you're doing and if there are ways we can help you out. But after that, then it costs money just and that's something that I found out over the years, that you get what you pay for.
Yeah,
Great free advice. The free advice only goes so far.
sure.
And once you start pulling into the details, the hard work, it's worth it. It was worth it for me, and I think it's worth it for others to really think about, hey, do I bring a business coach on? Do I pay somebody to help me work out the kinks? The truth of the matter is, if you spend $100 early on to speed up your workflow so that you can do 50 drinks an hour rather than 20 drinks an hour, you paid for that.
Yeah,
You know,
absolutely. Absolutely.
it's kind of like joining a food truck association.
Mhm.
Maybe it costs you 100 or $200, but the leads, the relationships you're going to get on that, you're going to make that back multiple times. So you got to invest in those kind of things, and that's it's part of doing business. It's part of the expense of doing business, and it will make a difference in what you do, how you do it, and how successful you are.
Yeah, absolutely. I still have a business mentor, still to this day. In fact, we just made another appointment for next week. I absolutely big.
Glad that.
Yeah, I'm a big advocate of just not only that, but having someone outside your circle of, of that doesn't necessarily have their foot, their a hand in your pie. I think is really good to kind of bounce ideas off of, to get some just straight shooting feedback on whether or not an idea has viability to it. To me, that's worth its weight in gold. So I'm right behind you on this one. I firmly believe in finding someone that has a good head on their shoulders. And for me, my business coach isn't necessarily exactly in my particular arena, but
Yeah.
it's just close enough that it translates well. So
Yeah.
yeah,
They have to know, if you got somebody who knows enough about your business to be able to be conversant, um, and then be able to ask the questions.
yeah,
Why are you doing it that way?
yeah,
On little things, things that you take for granted. Well, that's the way it's the way I always saw him do it. Well, do you have to continue to do it that way?
sure,
Uh, can you add the syrup to the milk before you steam it? Well, I've never done it that way. Well, why not? Does it make a difference? Well, can it save you 20 seconds in making your drink? It
sure,
might.
yeah,
So, those are the kind of things that someone who can help you see things that you're doing, make you more efficient, even ask some of the questions that you think are just no brainers, but make you stop and look at it again and say, oh, well, okay, maybe I can do that different, or maybe I need to structure my pricing differently. Maybe I'm leaving money on the table. I'm not
yeah,
asking it.
sure,
And for most food trucks, especially when you're starting out, you don't value your time. You want to put something on the calendar because you want to make some money, rather than really thinking about how much how much is my product and my how much value do I bring to an event or an outing.
yeah,
So I continue to raise my minimums because my time's important, and what I bring is something that is going to add value to them. And and I keep getting calls back. So it's not a matter of pricing myself out of the arena. It's about saying, okay, what's the value?
Yeah. Yeah. And good things cost a little bit of money. That's fine. I think all of us are willing to pay a little bit extra to have something that's going to be good quality. Cheap,
Yeah.
cheap isn't always the best. I think we've all come to slowly but surely learn that. And in some ways, I'm still learning that.
Yeah, and
Wonderful. I will put your email and your contact information in the description in the links, both with the podcast as well as the YouTube. So if someone wants to contact you, they can reach out to you directly. Mr.
that sounds
Sid,
good.
thank you so much for taking the time to do this. I greatly appreciate it. You went into a tremendous amount of detail and provided a lot of resources for people out there that are still scratching their head. And I think it's going to be a very useful piece of a podcast for folks out there. So thank you so much.
It's been fun, Vince. I appreciate the opportunity, and I've enjoyed watching on Facebook the things you're doing, and keep up the good work. I think that's it's a market that is definitely not saturated, but it's also it's a hard way to go. It's not paved with gold, but if you're willing to work at it and do some hard things, it's definitely a good way to make a living. Because hey, who doesn't love to see the coffee guy or the coffee girl pull up and say, "Oh, thank God you're here." I didn't get that always in my other life, and so it's a response now.
Wonderful. Well, thank you again so much, sir. I certainly appreciate you coming on.
You bet, and look forward to another opportunity down the line.
That sounds great, Sid. You take care, sir.
All right, good to go. Best of luck, and good luck with all that comes your way.
Well, thank you, sir. All right, take care.